Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this one, we're going to be doing the Ash of War tier list. This should be a lot of fun and very informative. Hopefully, I came up with slides, and basically, I'm going to explain everything that's S and A tier, some other notable stuff, and even Ashes of War to avoid. Let's get into this. So to start showing off here, this is Black Flame Tornado. By the way, this entire video is going to be applicable Ashes of War, meaning that you can put them on any given weapon that they're applicable for. And then for the next video, tomorrow's video, we're going to be doing weapon skills. So that was Black Flame Tornado there, and that for me is S tier. What is also S tier? Lion's Claw is S tier as well. Lion's Claw no doubt fills that category of S tier, given the fact that you get posture damage, you get massive damage in general, and with just a couple of basic buffs like Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, you can do massive damage to the majority of bosses in the game. Lion's Claw is one of my favorites, and by the way, it goes fantastic with the Guts Greatsword. It's a great combination for massive damage to the majority of bosses. They do fit hand in hand together, so if you're going to use Lion's Claw, consider picking up the Guts Greatsword, which you can get early too, by the way. And next up, Seppuku. Did you really think Seppuku wasn't going to make this list, given the fact that it adds a substantial amount of bleed to each weapon, and you can absolutely shred bosses with jump attacks, with successive attacks, and the general ridiculous amounts of bleed buildup you'll get? Seppuku is absolutely S tier. Reason why, very much so, that this is the meta. A lot of people are doing these jump attacks, they're doing successive attack builds up. It does get boring from time to time, but it absolutely can shred the majority of bosses in the game. If you picked up Seppuku and for some reason haven't used it yet, you will find it to be one of the easiest Ashes of War to use. And it goes really well with Frost too. You're going to see the video that I showed here was Bleed and Frost, which is also another fun combination there, but it's absolutely S tier. We're going to go over Chilling Mist in the A tier. As far as the next one on here, it is Glintblade Phalanx. Each Glintblade does around 10 posture damage, and it adds up to 40 in total, which can posture break the majority of bosses and enemies in the game with ease. This is an incredibly powerful Ash of War. It's absolutely S tier for the insane amount of posture damage it does alone, and it does a reasonable amount of damage too. And then you can follow up with something like the Rapiers or anything with good crit to make good use of this Ash of War. But the posture damage alone, like I said, is definitely going to put this in the S tier. You're going to be surprised when you use this how many posture breaks you're going to get. And next up is Royal Knight's Resolve. Royal Knight's Resolve may be responsible for the majority of stuff that you've seen as far as one hits or individual single hits in the game, because it adds 80% damage to your next hit. And when you do buffs on top of that, you can get insane amounts of damage. We're talking damage that is literally 10,000 or more from a single strike or single hit from something like the Giant Crusher here. Royal Knight's Resolve is no doubt S tier. It's been S tier since launch. It still is. It's a fantastic Ash of War. Just wanted to state real quick, by the way, if you're not subbed, definitely be sure to sub, and let's go over the list of the S tier one more time real quick. First, the S tier stuff here, we showed off Seppuku and the ridiculous amount of bleed you can do there. That's definitely S tier. Royal Knight's Resolve, 80% on the next hit. That's incredibly powerful. Black Flame Tornado does a ton of percentage of fire damage. Lion's Claw is a very reliable Ash of War. And Glintblade Phalanx with the posture damage is amazing. And next up is our A tier stuff. And for the next one, since there's so many in the A tier, we're just going to show off a couple here, and then we're going to go over an entire list. There's going to be a lot on the A tier, but first off, I want to show one here, and that is Flaming Strike, that for me is A tier, and also show off Chilling Mist, another fantastic one that fits into the A tier. Now, Flaming Strike gives you a coat of 40 seconds with additional fire damage, while also leaving a trail of fire that does substantial damage as well. It's a very good Ash of War, and then Chilling Mist is fantastic for Frost. The Ash of War itself, which leaves basically a fog or whatever of frost, is just okay. More so, though, the coating of the armament that we're using with the additional 40 frost is the selling point, and that's what makes it A tier. By the way, Flaming Strike and Chilling Mist combo together greatly because you can proc Frost, on-proc it, and then re-proc Frost, so they do fit well together. This was a dagger build I did, but you can do it with a whole assortment of different weapons. There are two Ashes of War in the A tier that can be comboed together for great damage. And next up is Double Slash, another really good one that's in the A tier. Now, some people call Double Slash discount Rivers of Blood, and in a way it sort of is, because you get the fire damage on top of a really good amount of bleed and a fast katana. katana, but there is a whole bunch of different assortment of weapons you can put double slash on. It's incredibly potent. It gives you a lot of versatility in terms of bleed builds, and it's definitely A tier for me. It's something that can build up bleed fast, and that last hit in the combo, if you're able to do it, whether you proc bleed or not, does massive damage. Now we're going to show the list for A tier. There's going to be a whole bunch on here. I'm going to try to explain them the best I can. Let's get into this list. It is quite detailed. So these are all A tier. We showed off Flaming Strike, why it is. Square Off, by the way, does a ton of posture damage that makes it into the A tier. Unfortunately, it's locked into straight swords, but even so, the posture damage cannot be overlooked. Chilling Mist, which we showed off. Bloody Slash, which is an excellent early game bleed ash option. Wild Strikes, which is fantastic for building up bleed, as well as double slash, and then obviously we have Sword Stance in there, which is another fun and good A tier Ash of War. Bloodhound Step got nerfed, but it's still a quick way to avoid bosses and whatnot, and it's still fantastic, at least for me. Giant Hunt does massive damage, including posture damage. Carian Granduer essentially gives you a giant magic weapon that scales purely with intelligence that can do massive damage. Thunderbolt can be spammed like crazy. Sacred Blade isn't really, it's close in the A-B range for me, but you do get the blade on it and the additional holy damage, so I did have to throw that one in there. And then Carian Retaliation, as far as being able to block stuff back, is very useful. Endure is useful for what it is too. As far as those two, for what they are, they're A tier. Endure can definitely help you in terms of defense. Next up is our honorable mention category with a whole bunch of ones that are quite good, not typically S or A tier, but still very good. And I'm going to start by showing Unsheathe, which does fantastic posture damage and damage in general. This is simply locked in for katanas, but for katanas, it's not a bad option, and I think it's the default one on one of them. I can't remember which one. It is something, by the way, that if you do the charged attack, I think you get like 30 posture damage on it. It's something that can build up posture damage while also hitting quite hard for a katana too. If you throw this, by the way, on the Nagakiba, given its reach, it can turn into a very powerful build. I actually really do love this Ash of War specifically on the Nagakiba. Unsheathe is no doubt one of the good Ashes of War in the game. Is it S or A tier? No, it doesn't quite make it there, but it is quite good for what it is. So this is definitely something that you should consider, especially in the early game, because that's going to be an early game option for you. And another one was one that's come into light a little bit recently, and I checked this one out too, and that is Phantom Slash, which is something that is quite good, but it's not ridiculously overpowered. And recently they did nerf it, so the Phantom doesn't get the same status effects you get if you put something on your weapon. If it has innate bleed, he'll have the innate bleed, but as far as Blood Flame and stuff, it doesn't seem to be working since patch 1.09, downgrading it a little bit, but it's still a fun and good Ash. Absolutely no doubt deserves an honorable mention here with some of the ones in this category that's going to be coming up soon because of the fact that it's just really fun to use too. But do keep in mind that with this specific Ash of War, you may trade often. You can use it to avoid, and you can actually go in the opposite direction of the Phantom. But even with that said, I found myself trading a lot with this Ash of War, so there is one downside there. But this is definitely a fun, good one that I had to throw in there. It's something that's solid, that's not S or A tier. Let's get into this list. Other notable Ashes of War to check out. Rain of Arrows is a really fun one if you're using a bow. It definitely can do a lot of damage. Raptor of the Mist is really unique and fun to use too. We had Unsheathe, which we showed. Prayerful Strike does a fairly good amount of posture damage. Lightning Slash, you can actually throw on the Executioner's Great Axe to basically make the Dragon Slayer Great Axe from Dark Souls 3, so that's just a pretty cool Ash of War in general. Ice Spear is pretty powerful, and then we showed off Phantom Slash as well. Those are all notable Ashes of War. Alright, for everyone that remembers launch and that remembers the past couple of months, I have a really cool clip that I found from like months and months and months ago. It's going to show off because the last section here is Ashes of War to avoid entirely now, and unfortunately Flame of the Redmanes is going to make that list. But I wanted to show everybody what Flame of the Redmanes was in its prime. It was S tier. It was ridiculous. It did 40 posture damage per use of the Ash of War. Now it only does 10. It really was one of the best things you can use in Elden Ring. It can absolutely destroy the majority of bosses, constantly posture break them, basically break the game simply just being by what it was. And its day, unfortunately, has ended. Even so, looking back at that clip, it does sadden me a little bit because Flame of the Redmanes had to be one of the most fun and ridiculous Ashes of War to use in the game. And now, unfortunately, it's one of the ones that you should avoid. That being said, here's a list of a couple of Ashes of War that I would just generally avoid. So for this list, Determination, Royal Knight's Resolve is way better and you get it at the mid game, so you can just, there's so many other Ashes of War, you can forget about that one in the early game. In the beginning of the game, there's even better options as far as Determination goes. Mighty Shot, Barrage, and Rain of Arrows, so much better. Flame of the Redmanes now is just abysmal. It's just fire damage. It's nothing too special. And then Golden Slam I used recently, and honestly, it was just underwhelming, and I did have the appropriate stats for it and everything. It's just something that honestly I'm just going to pass on. It wasn't that great, so I'd pass on that one too. These are the ones that I figure are best to ignore. I hope this, by the way, was really informative. This was a pretty thorough video as far as what I think are the best Ashes of War, at least the applicable Ashes of War in Elden Ring. And if I can get everything done in time, I'm going to be doing weapon skills for the day after this one for Sunday, so that should be fun too, going over the best weapon skills in the game, the S, the A tier, some weapon skills to even avoid. That should be pretty entertaining too. If you're not on the Discord, definitely be sure to join it. There's over 400 people in there now. If you're not subbed and you love overpowered PvE builds, be sure to check out all the awesome builds that are on my channel. There's like an entire library there now. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will catch you guys there.